very mysterious. Very mysterious.
It's a question that we don't have a good answer to.
Well, that is the ultimate question.
Now, that is tricky.
The more you look at quantum physics, the more mysterious and wondrous it becomes.
The question is, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
All of this really is just a great illusion.
Are people affecting the world of reality that they see? You betcha they are.
What is reality?
What is reality?
Have you ever thought about what thoughts are made of?
It is so mysterious you can't explain it.
The real trick to life is not to be in the know, but be in the mystery. Ponder that for a while.
I did it.
I love it. Let's see.
I
Let's
did
see.
it.
Hello. It's spotlight time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Welcome to Meet the Biz. I love saying that. Okay, I love saying that. And I love this woman. By the way, okay, let me just say this. What the bleep do we know? I get to say that. Well, I know one thing, that this amazing artist, this creative artist, this wonderful woman, this I could keep on going with what is it? A love fest. We're gonna have a love fest. And what I'm not gonna talk too much today because I'm gonna hand it over to her. She is an incredible artist, a director, a filmmaker, a writer, an author. That's a question that I have. What's the difference between a writer and an author? But that's maybe for me to work out. That being said, let's bring her on. My friend, I call her B, and she calls me Z. Betsy Chasse.
Hi. I am so excited to be here. I love doing this class with you, Z, because you're a big inspirational filmmaker for me. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm really excited to be with all of my fabulous, beautiful, gorgeous, amazing, brilliant storytellers that I got to see for a minute there. Like every single one of them has a beautiful story to tell. That is my philosophy, is that each one of us has at least one story in us, if not 1,000, right? And there's lots of ways that we can share those stories. For instance, we can write, which means we can write screenplays, we can write books, we can write blogs, we can write essays. So to answer your question, the way I see it, the difference between a writer and an author is typically related to somebody who writes books. And a writer can write lots of things, poetry, screenplays, so whatever. So I say writer because I do all of those things, but I happen to be a published author. And so the book that we're basing this class off today basically is this book. It's called The Documentary Filmmaking Masterclass. And can you see it, see?
Yes, I'm like, when did this come out?
This came out a couple years ago. Excuse me. I have a little bit of the sniffles today, guys, so please forgive me if I sound a little bit like a chipmunk and sneeze every once in a while. And for full disclosure, you might hear or see a cat, and you might hear or see a dog, just, because I'm in my dining room. I have 3 cats, Luna, Penelope, May, who's the mischievous one, most likely that you'll see. Cleo, Cleopatra, and Oliver are the cats, and then Moose is a little chihuahua who thinks he's a ginormous Saint Bernard. But we don't tell him any differently, So anyway, it's based off of this book. So this book is based off of a master class that I used to give to filmmaking master students at university. So basically what I'm going to do today is kind of give you the overview of the stuff in this book as much as I can in 2 hours. That's our goal here. And where I start. So, this isn't like, I've been really humbled and grateful to get people that send me letters, because this isn't just a very practical step-by-step guide to all the things that you need to be. My Surrey just went off. My very practical step-by-step guide to things that you need to know to be and make a documentary. But it's also a little bit about the psychology of filmmaking, which I think is also very important. So we're going to start there, because, you know, filmmaking, storytelling starts with a passion and a curiosity. A story that you want to tell could be something about your own personal life, right? It could be your personal story, or it could be somebody else's story that you're really passionate about, or it could be about a cause that you're really passionate about. But it all starts, at least for me, especially in documentary filmmaking. But the thing that I want to tell you as well is everything that I'm going to teach you and talk about today is transferable to if you wanted to do a narrative project, for instance, a screenplay, a movie like that, or if you wanted to write a book. So many of these steps are the similar steps. You know, there's some nuance here and there, but really what we're talking about here is the business of filmmaking. And it sounds crazy that you would say business and filmmaking, but the biggest thing to remember is that what we're doing here, even if you're making a passion project, is it's a business. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But anytime you embark on a journey like this, and David will tell you, Z's going to back me up here.
Yes.
You have to be in it to win it. It has to be something that you're deeply committed to, because it's hard. It is incredibly exhausting. It's time consuming. It may very well take over the rest of your life for a while.
Right.
And it sometimes will make you so happy and so filled with joy, and sometimes it will bring you to your knees. So if you're going to embark on this journey, be committed to it. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have fun and make a fun project and just mess around with it. But what we're going to talk about today is for the people that are really serious about making a film, a documentary or a narrative, whatever you want to make. But it's really that place that we're going to go to today, because it's going to take time, it's going to take money, and it's going to take a lot of your life force. So commitment is phase one of this process. Like when I look at projects that I'm going to be making, I really have to ask myself, like, why do I want to make this project? Why is this important to me? What am I willing to sacrifice to make this project? And what am I going to lose, or what am I going to have to give up to make this project? Because it's going to consume a significant portion of my life. So that's the first question that I ask myself. The next question I ask is, well, does anybody want to watch this project? You know, I mean, am I making this in a vacuum for myself and my friends? Or is there actually an audience out there who wants it? We're going to talk a little bit about understanding your audience later, but on a bigger scale, the question is this a story that other people are interested in? So then if I get a yes to that, the next question I ask myself is, well, has this story been told? Who else has told a story like this, similar to this? And it's interesting because when we get into what I call doing the research for our business plan, a lot of people, especially creatives, will say, oh, I don't like to look at other projects that are similar to mine because I don't want it to mess up with my creativity. And I say to them, well, that's very lazy creativity, because I can look at all the different stories that are similar to mine, movies that are similar to mine, and not have it take away from my creativity. But what I can do is look at them and say, what did they do that I loved? What did they do that I didn't like? What did they do that helped them succeed? And what brought the project down? All those elements that help me be a better filmmaker. It doesn't change my creativity or my vision. It just allows me to be better. So that's the next question. What's out there? Is there a way? Because I ask myself, is there a way for me to tell this story in a unique way that hasn't been done before, right? If the answer to that question is no, then I'm probably not going to proceed. If I look at the work that's out there and go, wow, I don't think I could do it better, then I'm just not moving forward with it. And that's okay. It's okay sometimes to look at a project and say, I'm not going to put my energy into that right now. Sometimes saying no is more powerful than saying yes. And it's very important in this very early stage of your process of developing a project to really have a psychological understanding of your yeses and your nos and your whys. It's key to moving forward and creating success. Because if we don't have these hard conversations early on in our project, what will eventually occur is those conversations we should have had early on are going to come bite us in the butt later. You know, this is why people end up toiling in projects for many, many, many years and they never get finished because they didn't do this early work. And the early work isn't as fun as filming and shooting and going around and doing interviews or whatever. It's not the sexy part, but it's the work that's necessary in order to make sure that when you do go out and start filming, that you're filming is, you're not wasting money, you're not wasting time, you're not filming things you don't need, and then you have a lot of clarity. So that is the phase one. So that's the first section of the book that we talked about today. It's like really understanding your why. Why am I making this movie? Why? So you're going to hear me talk a lot today about the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, why. Those are the magic W's that you are going to consistently ask yourself at every phase of the development of your project. Who, what, when, where, and why. And they have slightly different meanings depending on where we are in the process.
And that's in connection to acting too.
Absolutely. I mean, everything that we're talking about is really transferable, you know, because for me, Z, when we, like, you know me, I'm kind of a little bit of a woo-woo girl, and I'm very aligned with my values and ethics as a person. So a big part of my why is does this project align with my values and ethics? Like, does it align with the kinds of stories I want to bring out into the world? Does it align with my values in terms of what's important that I share with the world? So those are really important questions for me personally, because if the answer is no, then I don't do the project. The interesting thing about documentary that is different from narrative is that documentaries should be objective. They should be like, you should be able to present multiple sides, multiple perspectives. And that sometimes is the case and sometimes it's not the case. But it's important when you're beginning to make your documentary to understand, well, do I have an opinion? Am I trying to push forth an opinion? Does my opinion matter? Or am I gonna go for this open, let's see what everybody says and say it from that perspective? Because the next part of the book is, I'm opening the book now because I want to make sure. Oh, my kitties, hey, you two. They're arguing behind me. I'm so sorry. You know, really understanding that there are, I just want to find the page because I get the order wrong whenever I try to say this. Really understanding the style of the documentary you're going to take, because there are 6 different types of documentaries, and they are listed as, why can't I find this? Maybe it's, here we go. Excuse me. I usually have it marked, but somebody borrowed my marked book and didn't give it back to me. So I have my other book. So while I'm looking for this, here we go. All right. There are 6 different styles. So before I hit this, I'm going to ask questions at each section. And then if you have a question that feels like it's going to take a long time to answer, let's write it down. And at the end, I'm going to answer some of the bigger questions. But does anybody have any questions about that part, that first part, your psychological, why am I making this project? No?
Well,
Are you
actually, I do have one.
okay?
Let me see. The one thing that I have is you're in a project, you're on the go, and then you have a life change or something, and you still want to do the project, but you feel like I'm stuck at this moment. What do you don't want to give it up, but how do you move forward with it?
Well, it depends on the life change. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm in the middle of a project and I broke my ankle in March. And I literally had to sit down. I could not film anymore. And so I just had to respectfully sit down and wait. I think you have to examine where you are in the project. And one of the things that's helpful is if you do all the business plan and everything that I'm going to go through a little bit today with, and then which, if you do the pre-work, you can stop and start because you've laid out your plan. Life changes and chaos that can ensue in the midst of a project hinder projects that didn't plan ahead, that's sort of just flowing and going off the cuff. We're just going to keep shooting and see what happens. Those projects get derailed really easily because they didn't have a execution plan. So when I broke my ankle and we had to stop filming, because I had a plan, it just paused for 3 months is all it did. It didn't really, sure, it means I'm going to deliver a little bit later. It means that those things are going to happen. Yeah. Dates have to shift. But in terms of budget and all those other things, because I had a plan in place, it didn't really negatively impact it the way that it would if you hadn't really sat down and gotten all your ducks in a row. Because stuff happens. Excuse me. Sometimes I have a bit of a potty mouth. I'm trying to be a good girl, but stuff happens.
It said something else happens.
Right. In our lives. And so we have to, the planning, and by the way, this is good for life. Like, this is a life lesson. It isn't just about planning your documentary, but when you plan ahead and prepare, you have a tendency. One of the games that I like to do when I'm preparing for a documentary or a shoot is I love to think about all the crazy things that could go wrong. What could possibly go wrong is a great question. Yeah. And some people might say, oh no, if you think about that, you're going to bring it into your life. No. If you think about all the different ways in which something might go wrong, you're prepared a solution. What happens if our plane is delayed, which is now I've been shooting all over the world in the last year, right? Yeah. Planes, trains, and automobiles are a perfect opportunity for failure. Trust me, something is invariably going to go wrong, and luggage is going to get lost. Planes are going to get canceled. All these different things. So when you plan for those things and then nothing happens, woohoo! But if you plan, well, if our plane is delayed, I have a backup plan. Then right. If the plane is delayed, you don't stress, you don't freak out. You just go, oh, plane is delayed. Go, brain, pull in option C47. Okay, here we go, guys. We're doing this now. Yeah. So planning helps stave off the chaos. Right? So does anybody else have any other questions?
I see a few people there. I see Luke Zimmerman. Luke Zimmerman is here. And
hey, Betsy. How you doing?
Good.
I like what you're saying about your documentary and your book now. I'm so interested in it. But how do you get into filmmaking? Like, do you went to school film making, or you just
okay. Let me go back. So my birth was actually filmed for a documentary on natural childbirth. Isn't that insane? It's so crazy how life works out. So that didn't have anything to do with me getting into the film business. It's just a random fact about me. And then I was a child actress, and I did a bunch of commercials. I was on Charles in Charge and Silver Spoons and Who's the Boss and all those shows 100 years ago. Is because I think most of you are probably too young for all those shows, but way back in the day. And throughout my childhood, I just really had a love for behind the camera. I just loved watching how it all got put together. And so, excuse me, then I went from that to, I was working as a production coordinator and a production manager on narrative features. And from there, I ended up making a documentary that was kind of a hybrid. It was one of the very first hybrid documentaries where we actually had a documentary, a narrative story, and an animated movie all mushed into one movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? And from there, I started my love. That's where my love of the documentary format came, because I'm personally really interested in real stories. I think there's so many beautiful, incredible real life stories that, of course, can be told through a narrative lens. But I just love being able to see the real people, hear from them, hear them tell their stories versus sort of a fictional account of their story.
Do you make a script for those documentaries? It says make your own script.
So typically for what I do is that I develop my own projects.
Okay.
You know, I sometimes do work for hire, but mostly I develop my own projects based on my own passion. So it's an interest or a curiosity of mine that leads me down the road. And documentary is different in that typically we don't write a script until later on in the process. You know, because the first thing we want to do in a documentary is do our interviews. We want to interview people, and they sort of compound upon each other. But typically when I start a documentary, I will have a good 5 to 10 names of people that are core interviews for the documentary. And then within those interviews, I might get, they might mention someone or tell me something that says, oh, I need to get more information on that. So then I'll find somebody else if I'm following that up. But typically I'll start in my business plan, because one of the important pieces to funding a documentary is showing the financiers and eventually even the distributors that you have access to the important people relevant to this story, whether it be a personal story. So if it's your story or a personal story of a famous person, do you have the rights to that person? Has that person agreed to let you interview them? You want to show that you have access to the key elements of the story. So that is an important first step. Later, typically a documentary, I'm getting out of order here, but that's okay. A documentary is just like any film, is made 3 times. One, when it's in your head or when it's written down. 2, when it's filmed. And the third and final time is when you are in post-production, because you have the idea and the vision. Then you have what happened when you were actually filming, and sometimes it doesn't always go the way that we want. And then you have what it all looks like when you put it together. So typically in the documentary world, in that third phase is when we would sit down and really write the script, because then we have all the interviews. We know what we need to maybe get a narrator for, or add a host, or however we're going to put it together. We know what we have and what we're missing, and what we put it together in a script form. So that happens usually in post. Whereas with a narrative, you start with the script. So that's one of the big differences between narratives and docs. Docs, it's all about who do you have access to, what interviews are you going to do, and how are those interviews going to play out in a way that helps you tell the story, versus narrative, which is the script writes the story. And that gets us back to what I was just about to talk about, which is documentaries have different styles. And it's important for you very early on to determine what your look and style is going to be, right? So there's the poetic mode, and I go through these in detail in the book, but there's the poetic mode, which is sort of like music videos. Music videos are very poetic style of filmmaking, right? There's the expository mode, was like talking, a lot of telling, think talking heads, right? The participatory mode might be if you were going to make a documentary about a story personal to you and you were in the documentary, right? It was something that you were interviewing people and they saw you. So your perspective is part of the storyline. The observational mode is the opposite of that, meaning you are not in it. You're just observing and allowing the story to tell itself. And the reflexive, this is the toughest one, But it's sort of like, if you were to, I'm thinking of how to describe this. Let's see, how do I describe the reflective? It's not used often. It's sort of art, like verite. It's sort of a little bit artsy, meaning you're in it and then you're reflecting on it. So you're a participant, but you're also offering reflection, and other people are also. So it might have an event that occurred to you or to people that are in the film. And so there's the event, and then there's everybody's perspective of the event. So it's a little bit confusing, but it's kind of popular. These days, most people are using, like, if you think about all the true crime documentaries, they're very observational and expository. A lot of documentaries are kind of combining those two tones and styles. And you can mix and match. So, documentaries nowadays use a lot of what we call B-roll, which is pretty footage. That's very poetic. They also might use reenactment. So that's more narrative, expository. So there's different tones. And so now what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, how do I want to tell this story? What's the style? What's the tone? For instance, I'm getting ready to shoot a documentary. I start filming on Friday, and some of it's kind of dark and sad. And then it does get light. We go to the light. So we've already decided that when we film the sort of dark and intense moments, we want the footage to be darker. We want it to be in darker spaces, smaller shots, right? Tighter shots. Whereas when we do some of the lighter, happier moments, we want them to be wider and bigger and brighter. Because when you're telling a story visually, and documentary, even though there's a lot of talking, is still a visual medium. When you sit back and you go, how do I want to express this story? These are important things to decide before you start filming, before you shoot one frame of footage. Because once you start filming, you can't really go back. And if you've got all this mishmash look and style, in the editing process, it's going to be hard to create a tone that's even for the audience to really sink into. And all these pieces. So for instance, I shot a series recently called The Galileo Project, right? And that's very science driven. It's all about quantum physics and neuroscience. And so I set all, and had lots of talking heads, but they were all experts. So I set them all up because I was going to different places to film. So I didn't have a lot of control over the environment, but I did have control in how I set each one of them up and whether they looked in the camera or what side of the camera they looked into. And then I took with me two different globe-like things that were sort of science-y, and I always put them behind them. So there was this consistency throughout the whole movie that people would go, okay, I'm feeling I can settle in, I can listen to these people. Because if it's too many different styles and too many different shots, the audience can't settle in to listen. It's too jarring, right? So deciding very early on your look, your feel, and your tone will help save you time, money, and energy, of course. Does anybody have any thoughts on that or questions? I think I saw something pop up, but
let's see. Savon is raising her hand about that.
Hi, Savon.
Hi. What type of words of wisdom would you tell somebody?
Well, that's a very large question. Yeah. Do you mean about I'm assuming you mean about documentary filmmaking.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. I would say that what I'm talking about, plan ahead. Do your research before you start filming, because the more that you can prepare ahead of time, the more prepared you're going to be to film something that ends up being what you were hoping it would be in the beginning. What your vision was when you had that dream and you said, I want to make this documentary and it can start looking like this. When you start productions take planning. and they take time, and you know, they do take money to do it well. But planning ahead. So somebody just popped up and said, do you have a makeup person? So like, this is a perfect example of planning ahead. Typically for interviews, not if I'm shooting reenactments or something else, it's different. But if I'm doing an interview with a woman, I will try to have a makeup person. I didn't have a very good makeup person for myself today, however, but I do try to bring a makeup person when I'm shooting a woman. I always ask them. One of the things that's different, say, between a documentary and a narrative is that narratives use actors. Actors are used to having cameras all around them and lights and people milling about, right? Whereas in a documentary, typically you're interviewing somebody who's not used to having a camera in their face or lights or a microphone or all these things. It's all very awkward. So as a director, my job before I go film them is to talk. I do a pre-interview with them, get them on the phone or on Zoom, and I chat with them. So I get a sense that of who they are, how they present themselves, how do they feel, things like that. And then what happens when I do that, then I can check in with them and say, do you want a makeup artist? Are you comfortable doing it on your own? And you get a sense of who they are so that when I go to film them on the day, I don't have to figure all that out. So that's a part of pre-planning, you know? And then when I interview people, for me, typically, one of the most intimidating things that you can do is sit in front of somebody with a clipboard and a notepad, right? Very intimidating. So when I do an interview with somebody, I don't have notes. I have prepared and I'm just sitting, connecting and listening to them because you want them to feel comfortable with you. So you want to be able to get a conversation going so that they're relaxed while you're filming them. So that's why preparation is so important, because if I'm interviewing a quantum physicist, I better have read all of his work or as much of it as I possibly can. Have really sat down, and I always write out questions ahead of time and then I memorize them, but then I put them aside because I want to be able to have a conversation. So doing that pre-interview helps you get a sense of how they are and what their needs are going to be. So when you go to film them, you can be prepared. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Good, good, good. Anybody else? Or shall we move on?
We can move on and then we could get questions as we go.
Yeah. All right, perfect. So we've talked about planning, right? We talked about planning. One of the things that's great in this book is a business plan. I am a big fan of business plans. I'm a big fan of sitting down and really organizing, because at the end of the day, you want people to see your documentary, right? You want an audience to come and see it. You may want to go to film festivals. You may want to appear on TV or PBS or on Netflix. So in order to prepare to have that happen, you have to plan ahead. It's not just magic, right, Zay?
Right.
Doesn't just magically occur. So we start with a business plan. And what a business plan basically entails is there's maybe, they call them now decks, right? And if Z can make it so that I can share my screen.
Already did.
Oh, okay, good. I'm going to show you what a deck looks like, but I just have to open it here. Hang on. Here we go. I'm opening this deck. Says yes. There we go. Okay, so hang on. They call them decks. That's a big word these days, decks. And they sort of look, maybe it's, no, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out because I have a different share content. There we go. Screen. There we go. Start broadcast. Okay. Okay. So everybody can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So now you're going to see all sorts of stuff. All right. So this is a deck or a business plan, part of it anyway. We'll get to the second part later. But basically what you want to do is present what your project is about. You know, you want to put your best foot forward. You want to keep a deck concise and simple for people to review. You want to make it cool looking, right? So this is my deck for the Galileo project. So basically, here's the title page. Then I have in my deck, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, what's called a sizzle reel. A sizzle reel is basically a short video example of the look and tone and style of your project. And I'll show you mine in a minute, but we're going to go through the rest of this deck, okay? So then here it explains a little bit about what they're going to watch. And then I basically explain the series, right? Short synopsis. Here's what the series is going, or this documentary is going to be about. One of the things that you'll decide, and I forgot to mention this earlier before you get filming, is, am I making this a doc series or am I making this a documentary, like a 1.5 hour documentary? Nowadays,
can it change in the middle?
It can, and sometimes it does. But it's great to, but for your budget, it's helpful to know as early as possible. We're going to talk about financing and budgeting in a second. Just as a side note, it seems like if you're looking to make something to sell to a streamer, everybody wants series right now. But again, it like I try to let the story tell me what to do, right? So I tend to operate from the perspective that I'm a conduit for the story to be told. And so in doing that, sometimes I feel like there isn't enough material for 5 to 7 episodes, right? And sometimes there is. So the story may dictate from the very beginning, like, look, this is a movie. And sometimes you have so much that you go, wow, we can actually turn this into a 3-part or a 5-part, however you want to do it. But you kind of, I try to decide that in the beginning because it helps with your budgeting later. So basically we do a little synopsis and it's short and sweet. You know, here we are. This basically explains all the different things that we're going to talk about in the documentary. It's hard for me to make this thing move. I don't know why. Then I go through who are the experts that I'm interviewing. You know, who are the people that are going to be in your story? Why are they important? Right here. So this is mine. And then for me personally, I happen to love animation. So for this particular series, I'm using a lot of animation to as my B-roll and style and tone. So this gives the person viewing the deck an idea of what some of the visuals are going to look like. So if you're going to use animation, this is kind of the spot where you put your tone and style. You know, are you going to shoot the whole thing in black and white? You know, is everything going to be shot? Like, what is the way in which you're going to express this? And that's kind of what you want to put here. And then there's some more of it. You can look at see, we have some cool animation. I don't know if you can see them.
Yeah,
they're cool. Pretty cool. So this gives a sense of what we're doing. And then our series has a host. So I wanted to introduce who my host was. The other thing our series has is we happen to have shot we went to London, we went to San Francisco, we went to New York, we went to Florence, we went to the Vatican, all these cool locations. So I wanted to show, so again, your deck is about showing why is your series and why is your project so amazing? What's so important about it, right? And this is one style. You know, if you're telling a very poignant story or something that's maybe a sad story, your deck's going to reflect that, right? Your deck reflects the tone and feel of your whole story. So when I look at it as a potential fundraiser, a financier, or a participant, or a distributor, I even in just looking at your first page, I get the tone and style of what you're trying to accomplish, right? So next we have, this is, we're going to talk a little bit about the market. Who is the audience for this series? Who's going to watch it, right? Remember our 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. Who are we making this for? And you want to put your best foot forward. You know, I tend to tell people to be very careful about big sort of like big statements like everybody will watch my show, right? Because that's not true. You really want to get specific and really understand. There's two words that are important here: demographics and psychographics. Demographics are your who's, psychographics are their whys. So remember how in the beginning we talked about my who, what, when, where, and why. Now we're going to look at the audience's who, what, when, where, and why, right? Demographics typically are like age, economic background, educational background, where do they live? But the reason that psychographics are so important is because you might have a 50-year-old man who's really interested in skateboarding. You might have a 20-year-old girl who's really interested in skateboarding. Completely different demographics, but very similar psychographics. So that's what we have to really understand, do your research, and figure out who is the audience for my project. And then you're going to put that in your deck, right? Again, the next thing, remember how I said at the beginning that looking at other projects similar to yours is important. So this is the page where I'm still describing the audience, but I'm also giving the person reviewing the deck examples of other successful programs that are in my genre. So they go, oh yeah, that was a good show. Oh, this is going to be like that. Oh, I get it. That's the purpose, put your best foot forward. So this explains my whole audience. And then for me, I give our approach, and this is again more of tone and style, more of your approach. Are we going to do this from a like true crime? Is this a true crime like documentary? Is this a personal story documentary? Give a sense of what they're coming from. So for this documentary, it was important for them to know that we're coming from a scientific perspective. Bill Nye, that kind of fun stuff. I have to move me. Hang on. Next, we have, this is for me, because we're doing a series, I have all of season 1's episodes broken down. And then if it's relevant, it may not be, but if you have a project that can go multiple seasons, you want to give them an example of that. So they know, wow, we could do a lot more. If this is successful, we can do a lot more episodes.
I have one question on this. I see you have 5 episodes. How do you know, let's say, if you do 5 episodes, 6 or 8 or 11?
It's so hard to tell. There's no right answer to Betsy. I just picked these 5 topics, and my episodes are going to be 45 minutes each. Okay.
Right.
So right now it says 30 to 40 minutes, and we might be shifting that. This series was specifically designed to sell, right? So I am really focused on what are the buyers looking for? So remember this. You've got your who, what, when, where, and why. Mm-hmm. You've got the audience's who, what, when, where, and why. You've got the buyers who, what, when, where, and why, right? Mm-hmm. These are all different aspects of those same very important questions that you have to sit down and understand before you start presenting this. So the frustrating thing about the buyers is that in the middle of your production, they could change their mind. So as an example, at one point, everybody wanted hosted programming. So we have a host. Now, some people are like, we're not sure we want hosted programming. So I've designed my series. So if a buyer says, I would love to buy this, but I don't want to host, I can take my host out.
So you planned it in advance that way.
That's exactly right. I planned ahead, knowing that it's possible that might shift. So I planned it so that if I needed to do that, I could do that. Right? These are all the things that we think about before you go filming, because you think about what are the bad things that could happen. Well, the bad thing that could happen is I could go and shoot all the stuff with the host and make my whole show host contingent. And then 6 months from now, the buyers say, we don't want hosted shows anymore. And now I'm screwed, right? So planning ahead, thinking about what could go wrong. What are all the things that I need to think about now so that when I film, I can be flexible later on. So that's kind of what we did there. We have additional, for this series specifically, there's other things that could be monetized that a distributor might like. So a podcast, companion books, study guides, that doesn't always fit, and it might fit. So it just depends, again, on the specifics of your project. Is your project something that there is already a best-selling book, or there could be a best-selling book? Those are the kinds of things that you want to look at. Then comes, who are the people involved? You know, who are the amazing filmmakers making this project, and why should I have any faith in these people? Why do these people think they can do this? And then, of course, it's just the end. It's the last title page. So that's one thing that we prepare for our business plan and our deck. I know I'm moving quickly, but we've only got 2 hours, and so I want to.
No, that's okay. I see Gary has one.
Yes. Can you hear me, Betsy?
Yeah, I can.
Yes. Do you base the outline off of the deck, or vice versa when you do the synopsis for the investor?
So I write the synopsis first.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, the way that I go is I write the synopsis out first, because it helps me consolidate what's going to be sexy for a deck. So a deck is sexy.
Yeah. So
right?
what's going to sell? What's going to sell?
Right.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Right. And then if you get them past the deck stage, they want to read more. Right. Then you can give them the synopsis. For a 1.5 hour documentary, unless it's like real, there's a lot of moving parts and elements to the story, you still want to keep it concise, like a page.
Okay, great.
The reason my outline is long is because I'm outlining 5 episodes, right? So I've got a lot more to, basically I'm doing 5 mini documentaries is what I'm doing. But you do the synopsis first, then you kind of do the deck. Then once you have your synopsis down, the next thing that you're going to do is a budget, which is really fun. Now, hang on. I'm going here. I'm going, oh gosh. Let's see. There it is. I'm giving you an example budget here. Okay. Now, there's lots of programs that you could buy to do budgeting. I don't use them. I actually created this Google spreadsheet years ago, and it works just fine. So, you can find these online. You can literally Google documentary movie budget template Excel, and you'll find the spreadsheets. There are tons of them out there. I'm actually, Z, if anybody wants it, I'll send you, when I get my computer back, because I don't have it right now on this one, I'll send you a blank one of these and you can share it with everybody, but it's super basic, right? This is a Google Doc Excel that I made a million years ago and does all the math and everything. And you can find a sexy budgeting program. I don't think they're worth it, but people can buy them. Studio Binder, by the way, has a really great, if you're a student, they have you can buy it. It's an online system that does budgeting, script writing, scheduling, all the different elements of filmmaking. And it's called Studio Binder. And you guys could all look into that as something. It's actually a great resource. They also have a lot of really cool articles about filmmaking. I don't get any money or endorse anything typically, but I would say if you're looking for something like that, I would go with Studio Binder. It's pretty cool. So basically, if you see here in row 19, these are the kinds of things you have to think about. Well, how many days am I going to film? Well, how many interviews am I filming? And how many days do I need to spend with each person? It changes based on, are you telling one person's life story? So you might need to spend 5 days interviewing them, or are you going to be interviewing different experts over, at different times? So you figure that out and then you just start budgeting it. So for this particular piece, I was paying my cinematographer $400 a day. I had 2 of them. And for each episode, I was shooting 6 days. And you just put it all in there. How much are you going to spend on hotels, travel? Think about all the things that it's going to take to put your documentary together. Post-production, I've got animation in here, all these different little things. I go all the way down here. I got a bookkeeper because believe me, trust me, you need a good bookkeeper and you need a good lawyer. So, payroll taxes, insurance, all these little things start adding up. And so you want to put a budget together. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to talk about the psychology of budgeting. But let me ask you a question. It is now 11:55. Does anybody need a break right now or should we just keep going?
I don't know. Does anybody need a break? I don't think so, unless you do. 5-minute break, or we're going right through.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
So here's the thing. People always ask me about how do you know how to budget? Well, firstly, I've been in this space for over 35 years. And so I've learned to, experience, right? The thing about budgets is they're a best guess, right? They're best guess, and they're based off of like doing research and logic. Documentaries typically are not union. So I don't need to go figure out SAG day rates and all these different things because that's not really what documentaries are. So documentaries are a little more practical in terms of budgeting. How many days are you going to film? How many cameras are you going to shoot with? I typically shoot with 3 cameras. What kind of cameras? That's really important because the big streamers have requirements about what kind of camera you can shoot on. But what are all the different things that you're going to do? Do I have to fly somewhere? Do I have to rent a car? Right? Now, you might say, oh my gosh, I'm going to get all this stuff for free. I'm going to get all this stuff for free. And that's possible. Great. I still advise people to sit down and do a budget, even if they think they're going to get stuff for free. Just sit down and figure out what could I be spending on this documentary? What is it going to really cost if I don't get this for free or I don't get that for free? And there's a really important reason to do that, because in order, especially if you're going to get an investor, and even if you're going to invest in yourself, okay? In order for anyone to make their documentary successful, they have to be able to sell it for 3 times the budget. So if your budget is $600,000, you must sell it for $1.8 million. And that is typically the model that if you're going to have an investor come in at $600,000, you have to be able to give them their $600,000 back. They usually require some sort of what we call a bump, which means 20% interest or something like that. Then you want it to make a profit, right? So we're at 600, 20% of 600 is 120. So that's 720. So we've made $720,000 the investor's whole. That's great. But now you've got to end up typically along the way, I want to make money. Other people want to make money because it's $600,000. You're not making very much money, and the documentary's taken 2 or 3 years of your life. So you'd like to get paid, right? Plus, you're going to end up paying a lawyer. You're going to end up paying all these people. There's a lot of hands in that $1.8 million pie. It sounds like a lot of money, right? But at the end of the day, you've paid out so many people that you don't have a lot left. So in order to make everybody whole, you really want to sell it at 3 times what you made it for. That's always my goal. Sometimes I sell it at 2.5. It's not a perfect science, but at the end of the day, if I make a budget, even if I think I'm going to get a lot of things for free, if I look at that budget and that budget says, oh my gosh, this is a $4 million movie, can I sell it for $12 million? It's an important question to ask really early on in your process. That's something you really want to know before you start shooting too much. The sad truth is I can't tell you how many documentary filmmakers have come to me. I'm going to give you a perfect example of one who spent all their money or mortgaged their homes making a documentary that didn't do this research in the beginning and couldn't sell their documentaries. They just couldn't do it. So I'm going to give you an example of one of those, and then, I'm not sharing anymore. Okay, good. Let me give you a perfect example. Many years ago, I was brought on to produce a documentary called Pregnant in America. And it was a really cool documentary about a couple in their first pregnancy, and they were learning all about, you know, the different ways in which you can give birth, right, to in the United States. They went through the whole thing, and they were at this point they were having trouble editing it. And they came to me and they're like, we want you to help us fix this movie and make it make sense. So one of the first things that I did, can anybody guess what the first thing I went and did before I went and started editing their documentary was? Anyone?
Anyone? Wave your hand if you think you know.
I think you know. What was the first thing I went and did before I went and started editing their documentary for them?
Well, I see Julian Carrasco waving his hand. Let's see if he knows. Do you know? Yes.
You want to grab coffee?
I would have loved. I had a lot of coffee. No, I went and looked at other documentaries in the same subject matter. Right?
Nice.
So I went and did my research, and what I found out was that there was a documentary about to be released called The Business of Being Born that was exactly the same story as the documentary they had already made.
Oh.
And they didn't know about this documentary. So if they had finished their documentary, Business of Being Born had a famous celebrity attached. Whose documentary do you think was going to do better? Right?
Sure.
So what I did was I changed the perspective. Remember, we talked about the different styles of documentary filmmaking. I changed the perspective from this couple and this mom's experience to the perspective of the first-time dad. No documentary had ever been made about giving birth and babies from the dad's perspective. Our documentary, even though Business of Being Born was more popular in the media because it had a celebrity attached, our documentary won big major awards and was endorsed by the OBGYN Society, the Midwives of America Society, all these different organizations, because we had done something, we had told the story in a way that nobody ever told it. It's the same story, right? So it goes back to the very beginning of why I do things in the order that I do them. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that?
Yes, and let me see here. So I have a question. This is sort of, so you've been working on a documentary for years. Let's say I have, right?
Really? I wouldn't know anything about that documentary.
So let's say we do that. Okay, you take your breath and you say, okay, now I have all this stuff. I have to catch up on certain things that I didn't do before. But I have some amazing footage. I have amazing people attached. I have amazing stories, but it's sort of like we're in the middle of the tornado that Dorothy's in. And we're sort of in Oz. So we have to take all this stuff, this beautiful gold, we're panning for gold. And what do we do when we're taking our breath now and saying, okay, how do I gather all this stuff now and put it together?
Well, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I always tell you, Z. You have to, what is it that you're trying to say with this documentary? Yeah. So one of the things that I do very early on in my process is I write, and we talked about the synopsis, right? So I also write, if you looked in my deck, the very first page is a mission statement. What is it that I'm going to say with this documentary? How am I going to say it? Who am I saying it to? Why do they want to hear it? When do they want to hear it? The who, what, when, where, and why, with an added how. There's an extra H in there, right? So when you write your mission statement, I am making this the Galileo Project to explore amazing scientists who have been sidelined, who have amazing research that can radically change the world in terms of medicine, psychology, and all these different things, right? That's my mission statement. So if I have this mission statement, boom, there's my story. And now every interview and everything that I do, or when I look at footage, does that tell my story? Does that, yes, in, no, out. And you have to get really laser focused. So for you, I think you have to get really, what happens too sometimes, there's a very famous saying in the film business, it's called killing your babies. And that sounds very, morbid and horrible to say.
Oh, no.
But the point is, sometimes we get very attached to interviews or to footage or to some shot, but it doesn't speak to our mission statement. And you have to start killing those babies and letting them go and saying that's either another documentary or I'm not going to use that. But it starts with a very clear mission statement. Very clear mission statement. This class that we're doing today is not a storytelling and creative writing class, but you're going to get very clear on what your 3 acts are, because a documentary also has 3 acts. It has story structure. It's all of those things. I'm a big fan of the hero's journey. Personally, that's the story structure that I like to use, and it works even if it's not some heroic story, but that's my method. But that's what you have to get really clear on early on. And things can happen and change. I have a client right now who's doing a true crime documentary, for instance, true crime series. And I'm a producing consultant for them. And they just had some crazy thing happen where something came out that nobody knew. And it radically changes a lot, right? But because they did all this planning and they have all this, these interviews, it's kind of cool. They're super excited because it really shifted the way that they could do this documentary. And they realized, all we have to do is add 1 more episode because we don't have to redo everything because they planned ahead. And they actually started in the very beginning, because I remember in my early call with them, I asked them, well, what's going to happen? See, they kept telling me, oh no, this story's 40 years old. Everything, we know what's going on. They're basing it off a best-selling book and a podcast. They're like, yeah. It's all the information's out but it's not been done big. And they have a deal with, I believe, Netflix. And so they're excited, nothing's going to come out. And so I said to them, well, what happens if something does? Like, what happens if in your process, some new piece of information comes out? And they built a little plan in if that would happen. And sure enough, it did. So, planning, so why I tell you that, Z, because it's not like things don't change sometimes and you have to go back and revisit. But if you start with, this is my mission statement and this is what I'm doing, then change is easier. Whereas if it's just chaos, you're never going to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just picking cool stories for the sake of picking cool stories, know?
And the thing is, in my head, wait a minute, where am I? Oh, there I am. The thing is, in my head, I have the mission statement. And
write it down.
It's right. Yeah, like you said, write it down, put it down. And and now set everything up and go for it. And I'm actually, in a way, ahead of the game because I have a lot of, like, what about these documentaries? They have the footage from 1960, 1950. So it's like, okay, I have that footage now. Now I could put it into this structure and this desire.
See, that's where post-production comes in, because again, if you know the story that you want to tell, going through archival footage is a lot easier. And some people go, oh my God, we have this archival footage of this crazy event. Let's watch the footage and find the story, which you can totally do. Right? But at some point, you're going to have to pick a story that you're going to tell.
Yeah.
And you either know ahead of time and you go in watching the footage with that in mind, or you have a great storyteller sit down and watch the footage and they find the story, but they still pick a story.
Yeah.
Either way that you do it. Right? So you've got your budget, you've got your deck, you've got your outline, right? So now you know how much money you're going to need. You kind of have a cool way to show it to people. nowadays, the next thing that you will need is some sort of visual example, especially if you're going to raise money. You have to make what's called a sizzle reel. Okay. Sizzle reels can be anywhere from 1 minute to 5 minutes. It depends on what you've got, what you're able to shoot. You know, this is part of, you know, for instance, I'm going out. Does anybody know Andy Arias? You guys know Andy?
Oh, yes.
I'm interviewing Andy on Friday.
Yay!
for a sizzle reel for a new project that we are doing. So luckily for me, my business partner and I, we own all our own cameras. We have access to lighting. We know how to do this. We've been doing this for, you know, out of the womb practically. So we know how to do this, but you don't have to have all that, but you have to shoot some stuff to give the investor, or maybe you're going to a company that says, hey, we're a distributor. We want to fund this with you. You want to show them something to say, this is what it's going to look like. So do you guys want to see my sizzle reel?
Ooh, yes.
Okay, hang on. I got to click share content.
Belief is a trap. As soon as you believe something, you're no longer open to things that conflict with your belief. You just shut yourself off.
My mind's kind of blown. I don't know exactly what to make of it.
400 years ago, Galileo upset the church by offering evidence that the Earth is not the center of the universe. History tells us that when revolutionary discoveries threaten the status quo, the knee-jerk reaction is to ignore, criticize, and, well, occasionally burn a visionary at the stake. Many distinguished scientists like Ignaz Semmelweis, Gregor Mendel, James Lind, and William Harvey could not be appreciated while they were alive. Giordano Bruno was tortured and burned at the stake simply for asserting that the Earth travels through space and that stars are actually suns of other worlds. Then, of course, there was Galileo, who lived out his last 8 years under house arrest. But what if there are modern-day Galileos who could forever change the world?
I know you like to ask the simple questions.
Can a machine feel love? Eventually, we'll get to the point where at least we have the sense that they love us. Whether they actually do or not, that may take a little longer to figure out.
Science is just a story. With every new discovery, new chapters are written that rewrite the chapters that have come before.
There's absolutely so much more in this reality than we're seeing with our five senses. Neuroscientists don't look at the literature on things like reincarnation or on near-death experiences. When I finally was curious and began looking, I was shocked to see the number of studies and the evidence that was out there.
The philosophy of materialism, which is rarely questioned, assumes that all the mysteries are going to be explained if you use math, physics, and logic. But if your only tool is a hammer, you're going to see life as a nail.
So what are the implications? Tremendous implications. It will completely tear up the foundation of science. Lots of things we used to believe are going to disappear, and a whole array of new things are going to be available to us.
We've solved all the mysteries of the universe right here, right now? All right, we're done. Join us as we explore breakthroughs in physics, medicine, artificial intelligence, and even what it means to be human. What if there are unknown human abilities and technologies that could profoundly change what we know to be true? This is the Galileo Project.
That is my sizzle reel. So to give you an idea of like, for that reel, I'm just putting my headphones back. I actually shot most of my series because, can you see me? Oh, there.
Yeah, no, it's
because I had already had an investor early on. Okay. Typically in the world of documentary, usually you get some money up front and then you make a little bit, then you get more money, then you make a little bit. That's common how documentaries are funded. So I raised half the money I needed for this documentary and shot all the interviews, edited a whole episode, put a sizzle reel together, and did a trailer with all 5 of my episodes so that I can go and sell it. But before we go on to how you raise money, which is the next part of what the class would be, is there anybody have any questions?
Yes, we have Alan Stewart here, a wonderful writer from the Bay Area. Here he is, Alan Stewart.
Hi, Betsy. Thank you for this. Your sizzle reel was mesmerizing.
Oh, thank you.
I can certainly see how it would sell. I'm actually I have a pilot, and I have the whole world, and I have the first episode written. And I had done homework trying to be sure it hadn't been done before, but this is a fictional pilot. It isn't a documentary. Do you have any suggestions on how else I or one could check, not being in your world, being outside of the world, about being sure that it hasn't been done or is not about to be done?
About to be done is really hard. The only way that you can do about to be done is, so one of the things I tell everybody to do is to start reading IndieWire, Deadline, all the trades, because the trades are going to announce who's doing what project and what it's about. Beyond that, it's super tough to find out what's in production. That's a very tough one. So you could also go to Deadline or just Google, what new projects does Netflix have coming in 2023 or 2024, right? And see what pops up in that way. Now, I'm helping another client right now write a whole series, actually. So you've already done your research on what a show Bible is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because the show Bible is like a deck for pilots.
Yeah.
But it's different. So if anybody is in here thinking you want to write a TV series, go Google show Bibles, because they look like decks, but they have different requirements. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of all the different things you were going to need for that. So do you have an agent, or how are you thinking about selling that?
Connections. No, I don't yet. No agents.
Okay. One other piece of advice I would give you is to start looking, and this is for everybody too, because this is great for what we're about to go into, which is funding and getting your project sold. There are great screenwriting contests. And actually, Studio Binder has a really cool list of ones that there are contests you don't want to enter that are just, money grabs.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there are contests where people actually get deals. Showrunners go. And especially for TVs and feature films that are narrative, you want to get your project in front of especially TV showrunners.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
So, and they do some of those higher end competitions and or workshops have those people. And so that's a great way to network. Just as a side note.
Yeah. I'm more about personal connection, but I know that's the
norm. Personal connection is great, but just as a side note, I always try to, for me, the way that I look at fundraising is, throw out as many balls as you can and see what comes back.
Yeah.
And in terms of raising money, now you know how much your project's going to cost, right? We've done our budget. Fundraising is a tricky ball game. Typically, the people that are going to invest in your film are, first and foremost, like Alan said, connections. Who are the people in your sphere and your circle who love you and want to see you succeed? So they're going to give you money. Family, I call them, friends and family. Next are going to be what I call, especially for documentaries, angel investors. So an angel investor is somebody who has a personal connection to this story or this cause. It's important to them, right? It's passionate. And the reason you want to go to friends and family and angel investors first, and I'm going to say this, not to be the doomsday girl, but just to give everybody some practical knowledge. Most documentaries don't make their money back. Yeah. It's a tough sell. So, friends and family and angel investors are less likely to be really mad at you if you don't make your money back. Whereas an investor or a VC is more likely to say, hey, we want our money back. So just as a side, just the thing. So do your research. A lot of people ask about crowdfunding, and I can spend 4 hours talking about crowdfunding. I would say to you right now, avoid it with all costs. It used to be the thing to do. It's no longer the thing to do. I mean, people do it, and there are people out there that are really good at it. But in order to succeed at crowdfunding, One, you have to have a subject matter that is incredibly universal, that has got a big audience, and you have to be personally be able to get, if you want to raise $100,000 on crowdfunding, you have to get 1 million people to look at your site. Because the chances are 1 in 100 might donate $10. So it's all a math game, you know? So start with your friends and family. And again, we're going to try to do a documentary for as little money as we can, but we want to make sure that, again, if you're looking to get it into film festivals, if you're looking to get it on a streaming platform, there's a level of quality that is required. So you have to make sure you're balancing your budget with your level of quality. And then you're going to go first to the friends and family. Then you're going to go to, you know, angel investors. The third way, it's time consuming and it's slow, but grants.
Yeah.
Grants are a great way to get funding for projects. And there's different levels of grant. You can get a development grant. You can get a production grant. You can get a post-production grant. You can get a distribution grant. So there's different ways, but there's bazillions, literally bazillions. And again, if you just Google documentary filmmaking grants, I believe Studio Binder has a list. The IDA, the International Documentary Association, has a really good list of grants. The other thing that you want to do if you're doing a documentary is get a fiscal sponsor. So for instance, y'all, I don't know that Z does this or doesn't do this, so I'm going to use him as an example, but he may not do this, so I don't know. But Meet the Biz is a 501(c)(3), right, Z?
No.
Oh.
But we do have an umbrella through Performing Arts Studio West.
Oh, so Performing Arts Studio West is a 501(c), right? So you need an organization that's a 501(c). They become what's called your fiscal sponsor, which means that anybody who donates to that fiscal sponsor, that 501(c), has a charitable tax-deductible donation. And then they can give it to you. They can earmark it for your project. And that is a very wonderful way to raise money. Typically, the 501(c) will charge a fee, just like when you do crowdfunding. If you look on Kickstarter or those places, they charge like 5% or 10% or depending on how much money you raise. Typically, a 501(c) will take a percentage, which is normal. They have to process it. They have to pay, all the stuff has to happen. But then it's a great way because then you can go to your friends and family or to that angel investor and say, hey, whatever you give me is a tax deductible donation.
Yeah, and ours is Meet the Biz and Performing Arts Studio West. The 501(c)(3) is From the Heart Productions.
Are you guys from, really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that's who I use sometimes.
No.
I have used them in the past. So there's multiple companies out there. The IDA will do it. From the Heart does it. Creative Visions does it. There's a few companies out there that will do it for you, but it's a great way to fund your documentary. And remember, you don't always have to raise all your money in the beginning. But again, anytime you're raising money, they're going to want to, especially, first money in, they're going to want to know, well, what's the plan? What is the plan? So besides, making your sizzle reel, doing your deck, what is the plan in terms of distribution? What are you going to do with this thing? Now, a lot of people will run around and say, I'm going to sell it to Netflix. Yeah, that is not a distribution plan. That's a great idea. And I hope that happens, but that is an unknown. So what are other things that you're going to do? Are you going to enter film festivals? Are you going to enter competitions? All of that kind of information goes into your business plan. We intend to, this is the part of the business plan that is sort of pie in the sky, but don't make it too pie in the sky, because you don't want to make people think you're just out of your mind. Because if you say we're going to sell it to Netflix, the first thing an investor is going to say is, well, do you have a contact there? Or how are you going to do that? So you want to be able to say our goal is to present to these streaming platforms. Here's why we think we could be on those streaming platforms. Give an example of other shows or other content. The thing about streaming platforms, in case you haven't noticed, they all have a genre that they really stick in. They might have other things, but like Netflix is the true crime platform, right? You know, Stars is this platform, HBO is, you know, comedy. Netflix is comedy too, but you know, you can start to see like, why would it go to this platform, or maybe not that one. And then what film festivals you want to get into, and why do you think you're going to get into them? So this is part of your marketing plan. The other thing that's important here is that once you get an investor, you've filmed your project, and now you're selling your project. Remember that $1.8 million I was going to sell my project for? And I said, there's a lot of hands in that pie. Part of what I'm going to use some of that money to do is outside marketing. Now, Netflix and places like that, they don't want you to do that overtly, but the way that you're going to make sure your series or your documentary ends up in the top #1 for that week is because you're going to get out there and promote it. And that costs money. So you're going to hire your own publicist. You're going to start promoting yourself so that you can get on radio shows and all these things, so that you can start talking about your series. So people go to Netflix and start watching it. And then all of a sudden, Netflix is like, wow, this is, because Netflix typically spends money on their tentpole pieces, you know, their big multi-million-dollar projects that they invested in. But typically they don't spend marketing money on their licensing projects. So they only start to spend money on their licensed projects when they see their licensed projects are making them money. Does anybody have, this is the Q&A part. I've kind of gone through as much as I can in a 2-hour period. I want to say this again. I'd love it if you'd buy my book. I do offer private consulting if you want to talk to me about that. But the book goes, I have contract examples, budget examples, you know, all the things that you're going to need to think about in terms of like, what are your legal requirements? You know, all sorts of different things that you're going to need. I have a whole section on crowdfunding if you want to go that way. So it's very detailed. So it's hard for me to go through it all in 2 hours, but that's the gist of it. So does anybody have any questions?
I think we do. I see that Shannon Deerex, I know that she always sends in her questions, and she is here now.
Hi, Shannon.
Hey, it's been a while. I've seen you. I do have a question though. What is it like to write on how you do the documentary?
What's it like to write a documentary?
Or any type of documentary?
Wow. Well, you know, I love writing. I not only do I write, so for me, documentary writing is different than say writing like my book or I have a narrative fictional novel that I wrote. That's more creative writing. And where documentary filmmaking is creative, typically what happens is that I shoot an interview and then I transcribe that interview. So I get a transcription of that interview. And then I take all the other interviews and I go through them and I pick all the juicy, wonderful moments that are relevant to my topic. And I pull those together and then I layer them out. So it's different than say my words or writing my stuff. I'm actually taking their words and organizing them. So it's a little bit different. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So it's a little different. I don't get to sit down and put words in their mouths. I had to take the words they said and organize them.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have Monique. Monique is here today.
Hello, Betsy.
Hi. Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. How long you make your book, sell all your books and stuff, and the actors?
How long?
Yeah, how long?
Oh gosh, I've been doing, well, I would say that writing books, I came to writing late in life. This is the other fun thing to know. There's no time frame on any of this of when to start. So for the first big chunk of my career, I was what was called a line producer and a producer, which means I focused mainly on the money. How much does this cost? How much are we, you know, scheduling, organizing, the sort of operational side of producing, so to speak. And then when I made What the Bleep, I ended up being a writer. So in addition to directing and producing, I also wrote the screenplay for the narrative part and also did a lot of the other writing. So that wasn't until I was in my 30s. And I wrote my first full book, which is called Tipping Sacred Cows. I did not write until I was in my 40s. And so, you know, how long does it take? So typically to make a good documentary, I mean, it can take anywhere a year to 10 years. It depends on the documentary. You know, to write a book, I am one of those kind of people that if I say I'm going to do something, I sit down and do it. So it usually takes me 6 months to a year to write a book. The documentary filmmaking class took me a month because it was based on a class that I had taught, and it's all stuck up in here in my head. So it was really easy, right? But it just depends on the subject matter. You know, I've been doing this, the writing side. Once I got the writing bug in my 30s, I write every morning and I write every night. And I don't always publish that. You know, you can read me on Medium. You can read me on Substack. I have those two blog sites where you can read my essays, and they're different than what I'm doing with my documentary style. I enjoy the opportunity of playing creatively in different ways and in different spaces with different tones, different voices, and different stories. You know, so I'm not pigeonholed into like only one kind of thing I'm doing. I encourage everybody to tell their stories. And the best way to start, if you don't know, if you think to yourself, gosh, making a documentary or a film is really intimidating, I inspire everybody today to start journaling every morning or every night, whenever it feels right for you, maybe middle of the day. I mean, I don't care when you do it, but start writing your story. Just start writing down your story. And what invariably happens with a lot of people that do this is, one, it's personally healing and transformative. Two, you might realize you have a great story and you have a real knack for writing, and then you can start publishing it as a blog, or you can publish it as a book, or you can make it a documentary. But start by writing out your story, and that'll give you sort of the connection to what it feels like to be a writer, and you'll get better. You know, my very first book, I think I look at the books that I write now and I'm like, wow, that's 10 years. It's a massive shift, but it started with just journaling. Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, we've got a few more here. We have Mark Wells here. Mark Wells is in the house.
Hello.
Hi.
I just took the day off today to answer questions.
Oh, good.
What was your first writing book that you've done as an adult?
So the first book that I actually was a part of was the book for What the Bleep Do We Know, which is called What the Bleep. Oh, they're there. It's the blue one. What the Bleep Do We Know? Discovering the Endless Possibilities of Your Everyday Reality, which is a book that I wrote with the other filmmakers on the Bleep. My very first book, actually, that I published on my own was a book of essays called Metanoia. And then the very first book that I actually got a publishing deal with was called Tipping Sacred Cows. So that was I was in 2014. And so now I learned a lesson about publishers. I think, go get a publishing deal if you can, but publishers take a lot of money for your books. So I have a publisher for the documentary filmmaking masterclass because they publish books like this specifically. But now I own my own imprint, and I try to advise people as much as possible to hold on to your own intellectual property as much as you can.
So get your own production company or get your own book company.
Yeah, it's easier to do now, and you can get a publisher, but just be careful out there when you're selling your content that you're not selling it all. I mean, you're not getting everything taken away from you. You want to make sure you own, have a good lawyer to protect that for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Did I answer your question, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, next up, I'm going down the line here. We have Shaquille Hayes, AKA Spider-Man.
Hi there.
Hi.
Well, so so what's it like doing a documentary behind the
What is
scenes?
it like? It is a
Yep.
lot of fun. I am very blessed to get to do what I do. And it's super stressful. And everything in between. I think it's like everything, you know. One day you're like, yes, and the next day you're like, oh, I hate all of this, right? So
Right.
I suppose it's a little bit like life.
I love it. Well, thank you, Shaquille.
Thank you.
Let's see who we have next. Could that be Lucas Theo Selesky? Lucas Selesky is in the house. Here he is, the musician Magic.
Hi, Lucas. Oh, you're muted. Z, you have to unmute him. There you go.
You there?
Yes. What do you want the most success in your life? And should Miley Cyrus come and be a part of your Meet the Biz sometime with the PBS documentary so that she can narrate her PBS documentary series?
Wow, Miley Cyrus, Z, come on, man, get on it.
I have been trying this whole weekend and this whole year, and hopefully it'll happen.
Well, y'all have to just put your mind to it and not give up, because that's the other part. You know, don't give up. Be tenacious.
You might introduce her along with Peggy Miley.
There you go.
Yeah, you and Peggy Miley should introduce and interview Miley Cyrus herself, because she is everything.
Hey,
I bet.
What
Cool,
about
thank
music?
you.
Now, this is, Lucas, you gave a good, you made me think of a good question. How do you get, let's say, a Miley Cyrus, a Barbara Streisand, whoever it is, a Rosalind Kind, how do you get these people to sing the theme song to your documentary?
Wow, that's a big question. I thought you were going to go with how do you get interviews with them, but how do you get them to sing the theme song? You know, look, a couple of ways. One, they're interested in your subject matter and they're passionate about it. Two, you have a lot of money. Like, there's really, it goes with interviewing and your presentation. Like, for instance, if you do a documentary and you get accepted to Sundance or a big film festival, you're more likely to be able to go to some of these celebrities and say, hey, I'm into Sundance. Will you narrate? Will you do a song for me? Because they want to be attached to things that are cool. So if, for instance, when Galileo Project sells, if we sell it to Netflix and I've got 6 months before it airs, I might be able to go to a celebrity. I mean, I have somebody already that's doing a cool theme song for me, but I might be able to go to a celebrity and say, hey, we're going to be on Netflix. Will you do the theme song? So you always leverage. It's all about leverage with celebrities.
Right. And then we, of course, have the wonderful Chris Hendricks, who is amazing.
Chris Hendricks did a song for me for my series, Radical Dating.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's wonderful to know amazing artists. So thank you, Lucas, for that.
You're welcome.
Let's see who's next. Ah, yes, the one, the only Raquel Chavez. Raquel.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you, Betsy. I had a question. I know I came home 5 minutes ago. I had a question. What's the difference documentary and a writer?
Between what and a writer?
Yeah.
Documentary and a writer. Between a documentary. So documentaries there is writing in a documentary, but a lot of documentary relies on the interviews of other people, other people's voices. So I was saying before, like, typically what I'll do is I'll do an interview with somebody and then I'll have that interview transcribed. And then I'll go through that interview and pick the parts of that interview that I really want to use. And then I put them in an order. So in a sense, I'm writing because I'm writing the order, but the words have already been written because I'm using their words. Whereas if I'm writing a screenplay, writing a book, or even like writing the narration for my documentary, I'm actually sitting down and writing the words, right? So that would be the big difference.
Thank
Did I
you.
answer your question?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you very
good.
much.
My
Very
pleasure.
nice. Very nice. Let's see. I think I think she has a question because I saw her in the chat. Ranjani Reyes, do you have a question today?
Probably, yeah.
Hi.
Hi. I have a great story about my heritage, my culture. What reminds you of like Latinos community and something special in my heritage story to tell for like
It's
people
great.
know? So what we put like all Latinos together in documentary?
Well, I think you start with telling your story. Start filming your story.
Yeah.
You know, I know for a fact that in this environment that you guys are in, there's already great filmmakers because we got to see a few of them.
Yeah,
Was
like
it last year?
my favorite girl who her director debut is from the Cheetos movie.
Oh, yeah, Eva Longoria.
I love her. So yeah,
Right.
I'm inspired her to be
You
just
know,
like her.
she wants to tell Latina stories. So, you know, write up your pitch and start trying to get to her. But the other thing that you can do is start filming it yourself. You know, I would just say this because we're about going to be out of time.
Okay.
You guys have a wonderful community.
Yes, we do.
You have a beautiful community. And if you guys get together and start filming each other and supporting each other and telling each other stories and ways in which that you can start your projects.
Right.
You've got such amazing resources already with you. And so, you know, yes, we want Eva Longoria. Yes, we want the Miley Cyruses and all the big famous people. We want them all. But start with what you have in front of you.
Yeah.
Because we did a great thing a year ago. We saw some wonderful filmmakers make films. You know, there are Andy has a friend who produced a short. Z's got a couple of projects that he's producing. You have the resources right here. So start there with your story and just start getting some stuff on film. You know, don't spend any money, just keep it cheap, because then you can start making your sizzle reel and you can start using that, because then if you see something compelling, then you might be able to get it to those famous people and they might go, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
I want to see this, you know, but that's how it's done.
And what's your heritage? I want to know.
My heritage is French, Welsh, and Native American.
Oh, me too.
Welsh? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I said Native American.
No, I know. I was teasing. Yeah,
I
was
know.
teasing. But yeah, French. I am a hodgepodge. That's why I'm so passionate and hot-tempered.
There you go.
And that's hot.
See, that's why your heritage is a story.
That's right. That's exactly
I love it.
right.
That's a good log line. Thank you, Ranjani.
Anytime,
yeah, that is a
David.
good log line.
How many more questions do we have time for?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we've got 10 minutes. I just, you know.
Okay. Well,
I'm not in any big rush.
Okay, wonderful. We have Lanzarote record here, the turntable himself.
Hi.
I have a question for you. How to make a film with a movie, the story of Jim Carrey, The Grinch.
That carries the Grinch in it?
Yeah.
Wait, let me make sure I'm understanding your question. How did they make the Grinch, or how do you make a story with the Grinch in it?
Like The Grinch Stole Christmas, Jim Carrey, the movie.
How did they make that movie? Well, I'll tell you right now that I wasn't on that movie. So I don't know all the answers, but I believe they used a lot of visual effects, green screen, and Jim Carrey in the Grinch suit. That's pretty much it.
Nice.
I think that pretty much covers it, right, Z?
I think so.
Okay,
Thank you, Lanzarote.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. I see, you know, who's been waving stuff is Bill. Bill, I love you so.
Hey.
I love that song.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Bill James, and I was in the movie Becoming Bulletproof Jackson. I played the chicken sheriff.
Oh,
It
wow.
was a profit organization called Zeno Mountain Farms.
Nice.
And it was a really, really good movie, and you should check it out.
Isn't it part documentary too, Bill?
Yeah, it's part of a documentary also.
It's really
Oh,
good,
cool.
actually, B.
You
Oh,
should
I'll check
sell
it
it,
out.
David.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Very good.
I
So
will
if
check
you
it out.
if you ever need actors or interviewers,
I know where to go.
okay. Thank you, Bill.
I do.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Bill.
Let's see here. Okay, I want to be sure that we're gonna get everybody who's wave your hands if you want to ask a question. Wave your hands. Okay, I think I see 2, 3, 4. Okay, we have 4 more, and then we are wrapping it up. So let's try Christina Tebbis. I know. Let's see what kind of question you. Oh, do that dancing again. Do that.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Hi.
Hi. This is so. I need a good question for you. Okay. What is different? Your mind, your work, your mind.
So let me make sure I understand the question.
Okay.
What is the difference? Go ahead.
Okay. How is different your mind, your brother?
So I think what you're asking is how is it different when I visualize it in my mind versus how it comes out in the end? Yes. Okay. So it's a great question. Excellent question, Christina, because sometimes it's exactly the way that I want it to be when I visualized it in my mind. And sometimes it has to look different for logistics, or I couldn't get the person I wanted to do, or a better idea has come along. So, that's why I say movies are made 3 times. First, when you visualize it from your mind in the beginning and you put it on paper, then when you film it, and then when you edit it. So that's a great question, because sometimes it's exactly how I saw it, and sometimes it isn't. So thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, we have, like I said, 3 more. Wait a minute. I saw, Isabel, right? Isabel. She has a question. This is number 2 out of 4.
Hi.
Good time. Let me have your one action is air it is it how it how was your uh about the
All Are you, Isabella, are you asking about this book?
Yes.
Yeah. So let me see if I got this right. Do you want to know where you could get the book, or how did I write the book? One, where to get it, or two, how did I write it? Which is the question, so I'm clear.
Where?
Where? Okay, so you can get this bookstore in any bookstore. You can get this book. A lot of bookstores may not carry it all the time, but you can always go into any bookstore and ask for it by name, or you can order it online at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any of those bookstores. Z, you can just send them the name. I'll send you the name.
Yes.
They want to get it. I'll send it to you so that
Okay.
they can get it.
Wonderful.
Did I answer your question, Isabel? Was that your question? I want to make sure I got your question right.
Yes.
Great. Okay, good. Thank you.
Isabel. Wonderful. Good question. Yes, and what I will do is I'll get a note from Betsy, and then we'll send it out to everyone. And you know where to get the books and all that. So here's number 3 of number 4, and then we'll be wrapping it up. I know, let's see, T-Bone Williams, I know you have a question.
Hi.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm an editor for performing, but I want to ask you something. How do I go by writing my own biography? Because I've been planning on writing a biography.
Right.
About my disability, but I also live on my own. So how do I go by writing a biography about my life?
That is a great question. So the thing to do is to just start writing. Write every day. And there's things that I'm going to give you some advice about biographies. First, I would suggest that you read a lot of biographies so that you get a sense of how they are formatted, right? So are you going to just start at the beginning of your life and go to the end? Is this about a specific event? So you get a structure for your biography, right? And then just start writing, right? Every day. Definitely. I mean, I say absolutely. And then you don't even you can start by looking at the structure. Again, I'm always focused on the end result and making sure I can get it published and get it out there. So if you really want to get something published, go look at other formats of biographies. Make sure you understand how you want to format yours, and then just start writing, or just start writing for heck of it. Just start writing every day. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, T. Well, we've got one final question here, and she actually asked one at the beginning, but we could wrap up with sort of like bookends with Savan.
Hi again. Hey.
Hi again. Oh, yeah. What is your favorite filmmaking that you started?
The one that I made, or
yes?
Okay, my favorite movie.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! You know what? Nobody's ever asked me what my favorite movie of mine was. It's like asking what your favorite child is a little bit, Savan, just so that we know. I don't know. Jeez, I love them all for different reasons. And one of the reasons that I love them all for different reasons is because one of the things that I love about filmmaking or book writing is that it's never the same. Like, you never do the same thing twice. So I have documentaries about being pregnant and giving birth. I have documentaries about dating. I have documentaries about science and spirituality. I have documentaries. So I get to do all these different stories. So I'm going to be politically correct and say I don't have a favorite, but I'm very lucky and blessed that I get to tell so many great stories. I hope that was a good answer because I don't know.
That was.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Well, thank you, Savon.
Thank you.
So Betsy Chasse, what a wonderful visit.
Bravo,
Oh,
bravo,
thank you.
everybody. Great work. Betsy, thank you so much. That was just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's so great to have
Oh,
you.
my pleasure. Thank you so much. And let me know if anybody has any other questions, if they want to email questions to you, Z. I'm happy to answer more questions. I love you with every ounce of my being, and I'm so humbled and grateful to know you.
Oh, thank you. David, thank you for bringing Betsy with us to us again. And guys, great work today. Good stuff, good work, good questions.
Yeah.
Love you all.